Issue 11. We start off with the freedom fighters seeing some more pollution by Eggman, which they are still surprised by somehow. Even more somehow, they don't know where Sonic is. And Sally sends him a signal with her new super secret Sonic Signal Watch. Well, this came out of nowhere. Guess Rotor built it off screen. Seems too major of an invention to have just been invented recently, and off screen with no fanfare at that. Cool concept though. But for some reason, Sonic thinks that a shortcut to her is to go through a portal that is here for no explained in the comic reason, and naturally makes him get lost. This is the biggest plot hole in the entire issue. Why the hell did he think going in here would be a good idea? Why did he think he'd be sent to them faster at all? He wanders into an entirely new dimension, the anti-Mobius. I've been waiting for this place to be introduced. Why is there still a factory spouting up pollution with the world smelling the same way as Mobius, if this isn't a planet whose environment has been ruined by Eggman? His factory is never even explained to belong to anyone particular, so why is it there? Sonic eventually sees Robotnik, who is clearly evil-looking, but is helping small animals at a vet clinic. Sure, it's a good thing Sonic can survive jumping out a window that high up. At least the comic kinda lampshades it. Seriously though, why the hell did the good Robotnik have evil eyes? Why would he make himself look that way? This is such a lazy design considering the only reason Eggman looks the way he does is to be menacing, something totally out of character for Dr. Kintobar. So he finally at long last runs into Scourge the Hedgehog for the first time. They both react as you'd expect. I like Scourge's getup here. Okay, how does Scourge know about the Cosmic Interstate? If he already knew about it, why is he so surprised that there's another Sonic out there? How did Sonic know about the Cosmic Interstate earlier too? How does Scourge know about the fact that his universe is not the only one? It'd make much more sense for Scourge to be completely surprised that there's more than one universe, and he's not the only Sonic out there. Why the hell does Scourge have a problem with the vet clinic anyways? Why do any of his friends bother fighting against Dr. Kintobar? Especially his version of Tails, who would have to have a really good reason to turn bitter like this. This is a really big plot hole. This feels really lazy. Like they're no more creatively written than Eggman. At least explain that he's suspicious of Kintobar or something. Is he just that bored? Desperate for something to lash out at? I like how Scourge talks though, like saying ain't and try saying that 5 times fast, showing that he still has a sense of humor, a wit, an informal way of speaking to him. That's part of the reason why I like him in this comic so much, is that he's like Sonic, so he works as an evil twin. You can compare him to Sonic. For some reason, Scourge and Sonic go on a race with each other, being able to run across the surface of the water in the process since they go across the planet, and Scourge says he's having fun. That's great. Again, they're pretty similar to each other. It would be pointless to have an evil twin if he was absolutely nothing like his counterpart. I also like how it's shown that Sonic's only just barely faster than him, being only a second ahead of him, rather than Sonic being a Gary Stu but being blatantly superior for no reason. Instead, they're portrayed as equals. Somehow, Sonic leads Scourge into Kintobar's office because Scourge, with his fast reflexes, did think to avoid running into it, and gets him trapped in a net by the small animals. Because small animals can do that, you know, with no thumbs. We get it cut past Sonic explaining everything. Well, it's nice that he allowed him to explain himself. And for some reason, Kintobar still looks evil when interacting with him, even though he's supposed to be good. This is so lazy. At least he lets Sonic go home and gives to him a handheld vacuum device. Sonic uses it to vacuum up the toxic goop, and somehow that causes an explosion. And Sally kisses him on the cheek for it because I guess she wanted to do that for a while, but it still seems to come out of nowhere. She doesn't usually respond that well to Sonic being helpful. Is it because he arrived so late and she was worried about him? The next story involves Coconuts again, because he wasn't completely given up on apparently. And it starts out with Sally and Rotor being tied up, and Coconuts explaining that Sonic had easily defeated Scratch and Grounder again. This is all apparently part of Coconut's plan to impress Eggman, but that doesn't explain why Eggman rebuilt him. This is making Coconuts more interesting, But how does he have the free will to choose to do this? Is he sentient? Either way, he's still more interesting in his motivations than the anti-freedom fighters, who have no motivation whatsoever. I'm finding it pretty tiring how none of the freedom fighters are worried at all, even though Sonic is taking so long to get to them before the bomb will explode. There's no feeling of tension, or barely any anyways. It's just like the modern games, where the heroes know the villain's going to lose, as if they've already read the script before experiencing it. This issue has some interesting concepts, but both stories had problems. Sonic going to anti-Mobius in the first place was completely arbitrary, so the whole thing was just an excuse plot. There was no reason for him to think he could take a shortcut to where he wanted to go this way other than the writer guiding him along like a puppet on a string. My biggest problem is that even though we get introduced to a fascinating concept, a version of the freedom fighters who aren't heroes, we don't get any proper payoff. Because there's no attempt at an explanation for why they're this way. The whole appeal to Evil Twins in the first place. Scourge and his friends have no motivation at all for anything they're doing. As if they're just puppets led by the writers to be villains. No different than Eggman in writing. See, Evil Twins, they may sound like a cliche concept, but they're fascinating because they're a display of nature versus nurture, showing how different circumstances in life can cause two identical people to turn out completely differently. They would have started out with the same moralities because they would have started out with the same brains and everything, from having the same DNA. But then different lives would cause them to be different people. They're like a deconstruction of the heroes and how their personal flaws run rampant could corrupt them. But it's never explained here what personal flaws most of these characters have in common with their counterparts that would make them waste their time fighting with Kinderbar. And the big reason I'm complaining about this is because it's never explained. I can understand them fighting with criminals. In fact, that makes perfect sense. Sally's evil twin is fighting against people abusing their freedom to do selfish things, therefore fighting against freedom as the princess, the bad side of freedom. They don't have to fight for freedom because everyone else already has it. What flaw does Miles have in common with Tails so far that makes this all make sense? Well, he's probably just doing it to fit in. Maybe he's been bullied. Maybe he has a great reason for lashing out at the people of the world. Maybe all of them do. Buns and Patch could have turned bitter from people always making fun of their accents, the fact that they come from different parts of the world. Alicia's royalty, of course she's corrupt. And Scourge is a thrill-seeking youth who's got no Eggman to fight against. So, crime is the only way that he can be adventurous. And he's probably got no good parental figures either. I mean, we don't even know if he has an Uncle Chuck. The sheer fact that I'm saying maybe and probably so much is the whole problem. Evil Twins can't be played straight, because then that's just lazy. Just reusing the character designs of the heroes for making what are essentially completely different, unrelated people. If they have nothing in common with the heroes in personality, just make an original character then. Scourge at least does this great for the most part, being similar in attitude to Sonic, which is what makes him so entertaining. Sonic's an entertaining character, so it's equally entertaining to see him interpreted as a villain. But he still lashes out at Kintobar for no reason. For what purpose are they fighting their own Robotnik when he's not doing anything to inconvenience them? Why don't they just live normal lives? It's obvious that this Eggman is only fighting back, so that's not it. I love the designs of these characters at least. And I also appreciate how they tend to change the designs of the characters, like what they're wearing a lot between issues. So it helps them feel more alive, like they're changing clothes. They're a fascinating concept. Being living proof that the heroes we're following aren't perfect little Mary Sues who are guaranteed to be heroes from birth, but instead are people that could have not cared about being so moral and their lives had gone differently. Explain that! I want to hear their stories. It's charming that Scourge talks like Sonic, and it's charming. It's cool that he has a cool design, and it's shown to be Sonic's equal in competence. But just like issue 2, Sonic is just going to a dimension with no actual development being put into that dimension. It's just there. And it's only visited through a plot hole. Sonic having no reason to go through this hole in time and space at all. A literal plot hole. I can easily believe that Sally would have turned out evil because she's a princess, so power corrupts. And maybe she didn't have any good parental figures to make her want to be moral. But what about the others? Did Patch's father raise him to be this way? Is he like an evil pirate or something? And if so, if his father cared enough to want to raise him to be something, why isn't he with him now? Is he dead? Is Miles only with this gang to feel protected from a world that rejects him for having two tails? After all, Tails' backstory in most continuity states that he was bullied, so if anything, it would have made more sense for him to turn against the world and to fight for it. Not to mention this is the evil Mobius, so it doesn't make any sense that people would just randomly accept the weirdness of him having two tails with open arms. Like, it would have been more inspiring of a contrast how Tails fights through his memories of being bullied to still be a hero while Miles doesn't, and that's what makes him better than Miles. But instead, I'm not sure if this Tails in this comic even has a past with being bullied at all. Maybe it was only because the freedom fighters had a real villain to fight that they had to become heroes. And once they got their reputation as heroes, they didn't want to lose it. So they became self-righteous. This story was written by brand new people. Mike Canterbeek, Mike and Ken Penders. So this was his first story. And the issue is one of amazing concepts that was undermined by plot holes. I love the concept of evil versions of the main heroes, but they weren't fleshed out enough to be the great characters they could have been. In fact, we only really see Scourge's personality in this issue. I can easily imagine Antoine the pompous jerk being evil, and Sally can certainly be a believable villain considering she's royalty and could have been corrupted by power. Miles has two tails, so it would be much more believable that he was mistreated for them to the point of snapping than everyone blindly accepting them like they do with Tails, something that's always felt really patronizing. So Miles being a villain makes sense. He's a bully victim who's paranoid, distrustful of the world, and sees everyone as a bully. At least that's how it would be if they cared enough to put even one throwaway line explaining why the evil twins are evil, instead of handling it in the most laziest way possible. What, does Anti-Mobius have brainwashing waves that brainwashes people to be evil when they could have been good in a different dimension? Well, somehow, knowing that they would have been good in the other dimension, so that they know to make them evil instead in the first place. All this completely overshadows the second story, which is really simple. It just involves Coconut having his own evil plan, which is interesting, him acting on his own. But it feels very underwhelming because he was rebuilt for no reason and none of the heroes are afraid of him, just because he's not Eggman.